Hey everyone, this is James from TDB here, bringing you another In-Between. So today we have a blind tasting of a 2001 and 2005 Iron Cake 8653. This has been a constant in TDB In-Betweenisodes in particular. I just can't quit comparing Iron Cake 8653s with each other, whether it's within the same year or, the Iron Cake versus the normal cake. I think you can find probably 4 or 5 of these In-Betweenisodes throughout the years comparing these sorts of teas. But nonetheless, I wanted to do this one, and there's even a couple more that I've also wanted to do. So why this particular comparison? So we have the 2001 Iron Cake 8653 that can be bought from TG Light. So importantly, in 2001, there are supposedly 3 different Iron Cakes, but there are 2 different Iron Cake 8653s that you'll see mentioned the most often. One of them is the Heifei, which is the one that TG Light sells, which is, in my opinion, very representative of the 8653 recipe. There's definitely kind of a nice through line that you'll see from that tea to the 2003 Xiao Heifei to the 2005 versions. And I haven't tasted all the 2006 and 7s and 8s, but presumably into those as well. And the other version is the Xiao Heifei, which you'll actually see a bit mentioned a bit more prominently. So you'll find that one, for instance, from Quiche Tea's Taishanhe there, as well as you can find it around here or there. And that one, I think, is actually a little bit more atypical. I think it sells for a little bit less, although they're both, not cheap, but they're cheaper compared to Manghai Tea Factory teas from the same era. And so, yeah, this tea sells for about $440 from TG Light. So you're entering a spot where the price is going up quite a bit. A lot of that just has to do with the era when this was created. A lot less tea was being made in 2001 versus 2005, so the production increases, which also does tend to water down the quality. So we'll get to 2005 in a second. But 2001, Xiaguan still has yet to reform, which means that when you have these iron cakes, that it is indeed an iron cake, but it has kind of that more generic-looking zhongcha wrapper rather than a one with a crane, which would come in 2004, 2005. So 2005, things are changing quickly. The version we're having here is, the best Iron Cake 8653 from 2005 that I have access to. It's the January edition sold by MXT. Thick paper, traditional characters. What do you have to know about that? Not all that much, but it does change throughout the time. So, for instance, you're going to have in the ones they pressed in March, you might just have thick paper, but you'll have simplified characters. And then by the end, it is thin paper and simplified characters. They all kind of are similar-ish, but it's generally regarded that the earlier in the year ones, so the thick paper and traditional characters are more well sought after. So this is a tea where you can find different versions of it from a number of vendors. Teas We Like sells one for about $150, and Quiche Tea's probably sells the most accessible one for I think around $70. I like the Quiche Tea's one a little bit less than this. I have not tried the Teas We Like one, but I think it does give a pretty reasonable approximation for the recipe. And 2005 in particular, I think, occupies a very nice sweet spot in terms of it's way less expensive than the 2001 Heifei, but it still kind of it represents the recipe very well without being all that expensive. And the quality, I would say, is still pretty good. So really what I want to do here is I want to see how similar these teas are. And I also want to see how much better, in my opinion, is the 2001. I don't expect it to ever be 3 times better than the 2005 per se, but I would expect it to be at least somewhat better than that tea. So I'm really looking to compare those 2 main things. Again, I have 2 teas here. Don't know which is which. Gonna start with this tea on the left here, right now. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna start with side-by-siding these actually, and then we will see if we want to just stick with one for a bit longer. I'm always a little torn on these in-betweenisodes, whether to go this one for 3 or 4 steeps and then move on to the one on the right. But in this case, I'm gonna just straight side-by-side. So already gave these 2 a rinse off camera. Okay, give these a smell, I would expect them to smell very similar. Yep, it's got that menthol pine wood thing going on that Xiaguan often has. This one smells a little brighter. I would also say it smells a little bit nicer, interestingly. I've actually done this comparison once before. I didn't blind it, though. So I'm curious if, you never know what your mind is what tricks your mind will play on you. So blinding it, I think, is a very honest way to approach these. And perhaps, it's like if I cannot detect the difference in quality of these, then perhaps the 2001 is definitely not worth, pursuing in that way. So I think this one on the left smells a little better, but it also smells a little brighter. So I'm not totally sure what to make of that. But, I think the true quality will be more in the cup rather than the aroma. Cheers. Still pretty hot. I'm going to let that cool down for a little bit. So, interestingly, this recipe, I think, is probably my most consumed number recipe. I was a little slow on the 8653, but I bought some in the early pandemic, and I ended up buying something like 5 cakes of the January one from MXT, which has really been my go-to, and I've finished off the better part of a cake. And for someone with as much tea and a large rotation like myself, that's quite a bit of drinking, because some teas tend to languish around and I'll drink them more slowly. So, I think it's one where if I knew that I would drink it that much, I probably would have bought even more than 5 cakes. As gluttonous as that sounds, it's just the tea that goes down real easy. And interestingly enough, I drink it, I think, a little bit more than the big Munghai Tea Factory recipes, 7542 and 8582. Perhaps that's why it has been a constant comparison here. So I think the tea is just opening up here. I get some body. I can tell that the flavors are going to get a little bit thicker and richer for this. But it mostly has a lot of that kind of syrup stickiness that you sometimes get with these Xiaguans. Pretty baseline right now. A nice strong effect on the mouth too, even for being kind of a weaker early steep. And these iron cakes are also a little tricky to brew too, because it will take a little bit to open them up as well. So one thing that I like to do a little bit, you definitely want to break them up a lot, which is what I did yesterday in preparation for this wine. But you can also lean on the tea a little bit more early on. So obviously you don't want to forget about it and brew it for a minute or anything like that. But with the Gaiwan in particular, this is easy because you have really quick and easy access to the leaves. So you can see them unfurling, you can see what color you're getting. And if you brew these teas enough, you kind of know what you're going to be going after as far as brew color and whatnot. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to lean on this just a little bit, make sure it gets like a nice color there, and then brew it out rather than letting it brew kind of very pale. Because the compression is just going to extract a little bit differently, certainly than, like, let's say, a more boutique, very loosely pressed cake. It's kind of got that Xiaguan bubblegum thing going on right now. The tea on the right definitely feels a little darker. I'm going to do the same here. Let that steep out for a little bit. And that's getting a nice color too. Okay, so this one on the left, I'd say tastes a little sweeter. There's a little bit less body. Okay, so we usually go snakes now, so we will stick with this one on the left. It's probably going to take a second to cool down, so. Yeah, one thing that would be maybe better is if I went for a couple steeps on one of these and then switched over, as I could tell more of the holistic aftertaste that's going on in my mouth rather than just kind of ping-ponging back and forth. Comparing back and side by side like this and just doing one steep of each is better for comparing things like body and whatnot, but and just more specific flavor notes. But the aftertaste game, I think, would be a little bit easier to detect doing it the slightly different format. Heavy woody notes, pine, they both smell delicious. I mean, I love the recipe just in general. Interesting. And I would say the 2003 definitely follows this recipe similarly too. You can definitely tell that these are very much kind of straight down the middle Xiaguan benchmark sort of teas. So yeah, let's keep going here. Hopefully that is cooled down enough. Okay, it's thickening up. It's a nice burly wood so far. Definitely kind of got that pine, sticky, feels like you're marching through a forest sweetness. A little more medicinal on this one. A little higher toned, I'd say, too. If I had to guess, this 2001 one seems, this one on the right seems to be living a little bit more in the lower tones. I just want to pay close attention to the body here. This one, for me, feels a little bit medium. Not a huge body, not a lot going on in the throat for this, but definitely some sweetness kind of picking up on the roof of my mouth. Some salivation as well. Okay. Alright. And then, because it takes a little bit to cool down, I'm going to brew steep number 3 while this is still going. Cheers. Okay, interesting. Yeah, interesting to go back to this. I would say this is deeper, sweeter, a little bit more of an incense note there. It's definitely significantly darker than the tea on the left. Okay. So, and once you do have your leaves more fully opened up, you actually can end up reducing the steep time a little bit, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just reduce these to flash. It's possible that's too short, but you can see that the color saturation, even for such a short steep, is still pretty good. For me, at least, this tea on the right is feeling a little more expansive than the one on the left, which is something that I would tend to think would happen with the 2001. Flavor-wise, very, very similar. I would say the one on the right is just a little bit darker, a little bit more developed. Okay. So, brewing a little bit of a lighter color here. I would say that now at this point, the richness of the aroma actually this one might smell a little richer too. Definitely darker toned. I'm definitely noticing that. So I'm definitely leaning towards guessing that this right one is the Heifei, the 2001, and the 2005 is probably this one on the left. So that's where I lean right now. We'll drink this third steep and then see. I don't think we're going to go to a fourth. I'm definitely going to keep drinking these teas. I would say that this 2005 is like just a great daily drinker. The 2001 is just kind of the souped up version. So you kind of get both here. And I think in the end, I'm probably going to conclude that if you want just like a more regular daily tea, then this 2005 is pretty good. But if you are someone that really wants to get sort of the best that you can, example of this recipe, I think that this 2001 is probably the most representative. Quiche, interestingly, sells at $19.99, but the storage on that is quite a bit different, so that will kind of skew what the recipe tastes like. So yeah, let's go. Steep number 3. Cheers. Yeah, really, really nice. I like the intensity of this. It's just, yeah, it's strong. It's got like a nice mouthfeel to it. And the strains that I describe here could very well describe the 2005 as well. But I do feel like the contrast of them and the fact that I would generally believe that the stronger teas were made a little bit earlier in 2001 would lead me to think this is the 2001. Yeah, definitely has a bit of that Xiaguan bubblegum candy thing going on as well. Body is still medium thick, I'd say. A little bit thicker than the other one. Nice salivation happening. Similar flavors, just a little thinner, a little sweeter. It doesn't feel as heavy and as strong as this one on the right. Collectively, these teas are getting me nice and sweaty. So yeah, let's do the reveal right now. Okay. Yep. And indeed, this tea is the Heifei, tea number A, and B is this one on the left. Is it worth the price? I don't know. It just depends on your situation. If I was recommending someone that has a lot of money to burn and be like, well, it's like if you really want to get the best example of the Iron Cake 8653 that you currently can, I think the Heifei is definitely it. I mean, and if you want to really justify it, you can calculate the session cost. And, for something like 5 grams, you're still talking less than $10 for sure. Whereas this 2005, I do think just really does occupy that sweet spot. It is definitely 80% of the tea that the 2001 is. I don't think it's ever going to be as good. A lot of that lies in just kind of the overall potency of the 2001. And yeah, it is stronger. And I think it will, these tea both can age more, but I think you can see more of that just pent up feel in something like the 2001, which I think is just going to continue to get better as time goes on. And these are also teas that will require good storage. I think having somewhere humid, so Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, whatever, I think that's pretty essential for these teas. Yunnan Sourcing sells the Da Hong Fei 2001 Iron Cake. That tea is quite difficult to take in because of the more Kunming storage there. So I think the storage absolutely does make a difference. So when you are selecting for a tea, it's definitely a very important consideration when we're talking about Xiaguan in particular. So yeah, I'm going to finish up this cup. Going to keep sipping these teas because these are enjoyable teas. And I will see y'all next time. Cheers.